Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Pet Loss Journals. And as promised, I have a really wonderful guest with me this week. And I'm delighted to call her a friend of mine. Through social media, we've never met in person, but we've often kind of met each other virtually. So I'm just delighted to have Jenn Robertson here. And Jenn, you might know Jenn from Sage Paws. She is very active on Instagram in the whole arena of pet loss, anticipatory grief, lots of stuff. She's also a very wonderful vet. So I think, yeah, I hope I did your introduction justice, Jenn. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to finally have you on for an episode. How are you doing?
I'm doing well and I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for asking me to be on this podcast and to talk about this topic that is so near and dear to our hearts. And it's just so wonderful to get connected with like-minded people and just amazing that we're across the world from each other and we're, getting to connect in that way. One of the positives of social media, I think. So I'm excited to be here.
Perfect. No, I'm so delighted that you're here. And it's I think I'd love to start with your own personal experience, if that's okay, of pet loss. And I think you mentioned on before we hit record, Riley, which is a very, very special dog, part of your life. And I think we'd love to hear, how did the bond kind of begin? How did you meet? Bring us back to the beginning.
Oh, all the way back to the beginning. So he came into my life, my family's life in 2004. In October, a neighbor of my parents had found him in a bush, just this tiny little, mostly brown and white puppy crying in a bush. He was by himself. And we'd never had a dog before. We'd always had cats. And my mom, she'd probably tell the story better, but she went and met this puppy and I think instantly fell in love. He sat in her lap. And I don't think my dad wanted a dog at first, but you know how that goes with dads sometimes where they're like, no, we don't need any pets. And then they meet the animal and it's game over from there. So he came into my life. I was a junior in high school at the time, beginning of my junior year. And he was just the most adorable, wrinkly little guy. And we had no idea what breed he was. Some kind of hound, I think. Maybe like a hound Rhodesian Ridgeback type of mix. He was a very handsome boy and he loved to be in my mom's lap. That was his favorite place. And I think somebody had said to her, they're like, what are you going to do when he gets to be too big for your lap? And my mom was like, he's never going to be too big for my lap. And even at 60 pounds, which is what he grew to be, he was known as the lap dog. He was Riley the lap dog and he loved being in my mom's lap and he would pick certain people to go up into their
Oh,
lap. And it was so comical. It didn't matter where you were, if you're on the ground, up in a chair, like he would try to climb into your lap. And that's where he loved to be.
oh God, he sounds like absolute dote. And the fact that how you found him was just heartbreaking, like, and there was no kind of other information. Was his health and everything, was he okay? And
I think so. I think from as far as we could tell, he was a happy puppy, had common puppy things. I think he had intestinal parasites, but we got him treated. But aside from that, I believe, was a good weight and in good health. And we have no idea how he got to be there. But sometimes I think the universe has a way of helping us find each other. And it
mm,
just seemed like so meant to be that he came into our life at that point and just my mom and him formed this very deep bond and connection. And I often joke that he was the son that my mom never had. And she just she just loved him so much. And even, I mean, still loves him even though he's no longer here, but like the connection and bond that they formed, it was just indescribable and just so beautiful to see them together. And he was the best dog, the most patient dog, nervous about so many different things, but he
okay,
just
yeah.
was such a good boy, such a good boy. Like everybody loved him. that met him, especially going to my grandparents' house, my mom's parents. Every time he would go over there, my grandpa would greet him with like three of the biggest milk bone treats in his pocket, and he knew it. Like Riley knew it. As soon as he got there, he'd be barking at the door, and he would go in, and my grandpa would hand him one of those milk bones, and he would toss it up in the air and just like play this game with it, and he'd eat half of it and then go back for another one, and it was just so like endearing to see how he connected with other people and just that the sensitive soul that he had, and he had the most soulful eyes too, that just like I don't know, just like, indescribable. I'm sure you understand being a pet lover and having dogs in your life, but there was just
Mm.
something about him that he was the best dog.
Oh, yeah. Like I think when you're mentioning his eyes, it's like their eyes just look into our souls. They just know
Yes.
like what to do to kind of comfort us or just, I don't know. It's like you say, you can't even describe it. It's just anyone listening will know exactly what we're talking about, I think.
Yes. Yes, I think so too. I think it's like when you do have that bond
Mm,
with the pet and you have that connection, like you don't even have to say any words. People just they get it. They
mm.
get what you're talking about.
No, that's good. And like, did you face any kind of life challenges with Riley, or did he help you to kind of get through things, or why? Tell us a little bit more about that.
And nothing is like coming to mind
Mm.
because he did come into my life right at the end of my high school years, and then I went off
Yeah.
to college. I
Hmm.
think he was probably more emotional support for my parents
Yes.
going navigating that change
Letting go
of
of their
having
daughter. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm the
Yeah.
oldest, so it was like the
Oh,
first,
okay.
yep, it was the first experience with that. So I think he helped to probably fill that little bit of a void of one daughter is gone off to college, um and yeah, I think that was kind of his main role. And like he just I would love to like see him when I would come home from school, and just the best boy. He just wanted to be next to people, just wanted to be with anybody.
You must have missed him a lot when you like started your college life and kind of left home. You must have really missed him, like,
I
yeah.
did. I did. Because like I said, we didn't have a dog before him. So it was the first time
Mm.
we ever had a dog. So it's, like had a bond with my cats growing up. And I think that there can be some differences between bonding with a dog and a cat. And but yeah, I did. I did miss him a lot while I was gone.
How long was he a part of your lives for all of your lives, I guess? Yeah.
Yeah. So we found him in 2004, and he passed away in December of 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was there for a lot of things.
Mm.
And we unfortunately lost him 2 days after losing my grandpa, the one that I
Oh,
was talking about with the milk bones.
oh
And
God. Okay.
it was that was tough to go through, to lose him. And then it was like he just was not doing well, and we ended up saying goodbye to him 2 days after that. And it was also the week before Christmas,
Oh
and
God. Yeah.
3 years after losing my other grandpa the day after Christmas in 2014. So December holds a lot of grief, a lot of heavy emotion for me and my family, quite a few losses that happened in a short amount of time.
Mm. In that same month. I
Hmm.
always kind of, I've heard that from others as well that have said that a lot of loss happens within the same kind of time frame, whether in a couple of months or 1 month. I don't know what it is about it, but it's it's unfair and it's pretty flippin' tough, isn't it, to go
Yeah,
through that?
absolutely. Yeah, I've heard that
Mm.
losses tend to come in threes is something, and I'm not sure the basis behind it, but
Yeah.
it definitely complicated that grief to lose a human family member and then a four-legged family member.
Mm.
And I think in ways, and I know this is something that people I think also might resonate with, of like losing Riley was harder than losing my grandpa in certain aspects. And I remember my mom talking about that. Like we were all still sad, of course, to lose my grandpa, to lose her dad, but she said that losing Riley was harder than losing her dad in certain ways. And I think, like I said, I think a lot of people might resonate with that.
Mm.
And I don't feel like we always talk about that as much because it's a little taboo to think about
Mm.
missing a pet more than you would a human
Mm.
family member, but it is absolutely a real and valid experience to have.
Yeah, I'm actually delighted that you brought that up because it's not spoken about very much. And besides you and I speaking about it as much as we can, it does get a lot of, it's controversial, it's taboo, like you said. And I guess people that aren't animal people, that aren't pet parent people, they can't contemplate that. They can't understand how that could even be real. Like, as in, no, you could be joking. But for you as well, that you mentioned that even for you, it was harder to lose Riley. If you're comfortable, share with us in what kind of ways was that harder than your granddad passing
Yeah.
away?
And I think the biggest thing is just our pets offer us that unconditional love that and I felt very loved by my grandfather. Like
Mm.
there's no doubt in my mind. And just speaking in generalities, I think it's that unconditional love that they give us and
Mm.
that quiet presence that they bring to our lives that they look at you and they don't care what you look like. They don't care what job you have, how much money you make, what car you drive. They just like you are their entire world. And there's just that deep bond and connection I think that comes with that. And they become so intertwined in your life and your routine. And then it's like you sometimes you forget how intertwined they are. And then when they're not there, you feel that void of like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't realize how much they were a part of everything that I do. And even, just seeing them in the morning, like something so simple, or like your daily walk, you go on that walk and somebody asks, oh, how is so and so? And then it hits you and you're like, oh, just remind all these reminders of their
Mm.
absence
Mm.
because they are so intertwined. And I think that's what can make it so difficult is just that constant present. And they teach us how to be present and in the moment and to just like live fully and
Mm.
unapologetically. And they are so authentic. And it's
Mm.
like we don't always get that with people.
No, it's like they have the superpowers that every human wants to have.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
just don't attach conditions to the relationships. They just, no matter, even if they're unwell, as you would probably have experienced, they still offer that love, even though they mightn't be well physically or emotionally, mentally, whatever way the pet is struggling. And they still are delighted to see you. And I just think you can't get that from some human relationships. And some people might argue, oh, there can be relationships where you can feel unconditional love, but maybe, maybe aspects, glimmers of it,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
not like the complete kind of package that you kind of get
Right.
from a pet. But I love the
Yeah.
way you described that because I think that's going to be really helpful for anyone listening who may even have been told by family, why do you feel that way? That's wrong. You should feel
Mm.
more for your grandparent or your parent or whoever human in their life that died. And I think so. Listen to what Jen is saying because Jen has gone through it and I've experienced it myself as well. And I think that conversations like this are important and this is obviously a very safe place to have them. Sometimes in the depths of Instagram or TikTok or the internet, it's could be a bit of a dangerous place to be mentioning it with the backlash lash that we would get. But thank you for sharing that with us because that is quite personal and I really feel that whoever's listening will resonate with that specifically. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I think just normalizing and validating that for people that
Mm.
however you feel about this loss is valid. There's no right way to feel, no wrong way to feel. Like whatever emotion comes up for you is okay. it's okay if this loss feels heavier and weighs heavier on you than any human loss you've been through.
Mm.
Like, it makes so much sense to me why it would.
Mm.
Absolutely makes sense to me.
Yeah. And as well as you were describing it, what kind of entered my mind was we actually spend many more seconds and minutes with our pets than we do with our family, maybe if we're not living with them directly. But like even that logical, factual point of view is how you create relationships way stronger because every minute of every day you're nearly spent with your pets. Like they're living in the house with you. So I think that's kind of another point to kind of recognize as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then you're also like your responsibility for them,
Mm.
making those decisions for them because they can't speak for themselves. So you're caring for them almost the way that a parent does for a child who an infant is completely dependent on you, and our pets are dependent on us
Mhm.
in very, very similar ways. So it's like taking care of them and being you identify, I'm Reese's mom, my cat, who is here on my desk rubbing her head all over my books.
She's
Like,
gorgeous.
thank you. Like, I'm her mom, and you identify, your identity gets tied in with
Mm.
them as
Mm.
their caretaker, as their parent, or however, whatever term
Mm.
you use to describe yourself. Like, your identity is so wrapped up with them. Your purpose is wrapped up with them.
Mm.
So then when with that impending loss, that anticipatory grief, and then after they're gone, it can be, you can feel so uncertain of like, who am I?
Mm.
Who will I be? What is my purpose now? Like, how do I navigate this new normal or this new stage of life that I'm in without like moving forward without my pet there?
Mhm.
It can feel, like I said, that uncertainty and just like that can be really, I think, anxiety inducing
Mm.
and just like, I don't know what to do with myself now that they're not here. And then especially when we get towards end of life, if they've required a lot of care
Mm.
and you are taking on even more of that caregiving role. So it can be very much like, well, where do I go from here? What do I do now that they're not
Mm.
here?
You just feel people feel very lost, I think, after that's happened. I know you mentioned to me before we hit record that Riley was an inspiration for your business. I'd love to hear that story if you'd like to share it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And some of the details of like timelines are a little bit fuzzy, but I mean,
Mm.
going through that experience with him, I remember he was diagnosed with cancer, just a mass on his side years ago,
Mm.
and we had it removed, and then it came back. We had it removed, and I think it was when it came back for the third time. That's when things started to kind of shift for us because there was a day where we really thought we were going to lose him, and it came out of nowhere. I remember getting ready for work. My mom, I was living at home at the time. It was right after I graduated from vet school, and I remember she's like, he just doesn't seem like he's acting like himself.
Mm.
And I took a listen and I remember hearing this heart murmur and I'm like, I don't remember him having a heart murmur. That's kind of strange. Like maybe make an appointment with your vet just to have him looked at because she was
Mm.
taking our pets somewhere else. And I went off to work and I remember getting the text and she said, Riley just collapsed. We have no idea what happened and we're taking him to the emergency clinic. And they had thought that he might have had an internal bleeding episode, or they were basically preparing us to maybe have to make that decision to say goodbye to him.
Okay.
And I will never forget coming home that day and my mom was just in hysterics where she's like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. That very raw desperation of like, this can't be the moment, but it very much might be the moment of like wishing with every fiber in your being that it isn't, but it might be. And I get emotional thinking about watching her in that state because it was that very raw emotional state. And we got to the emergency clinic and it ended up not being what they thought it was. And we didn't end up having to make that decision right then and there. Like, thank God we didn't have to, but it got us to really start to think about, how are we going to navigate this? and we went and to the oncologist, the radiologist to look into our different options that we had. And I remember just the price of it and my mom looking at me and she was like in tears in her eyes. She's like, I hate that it comes down to money, but I
Mm.
don't think that I can do this. Like financially, I don't think that I can do this. Maybe if he was younger, it might be an option on the table, but I think he was 13 at the
Mm.
time. So it was that aspect. And then he hated car rides, and it was going to be a 45-minute car ride to
Okay.
this specialty clinic. He hated being in the hospital. He was going to need to be hospitalized for, I think, like 2 hours. He'd have to be anesthetized for the radiation and everything. And then it was like 20 treatments or something. So it was a lot. So we were
Mm.
weighing this like financial budget of, okay, here's our line.
Yeah.
We don't think we can spend this much.
Mm.
And then it was like his personality of he hated the car, he hated the
Yeah.
clinic, and then how do we put him through all
Mm.
of this? So like weighing that aspect of it, that budget. And I remember looking at my mom and I said, Mom, it's okay if we can't do this because of the finances, if we can't do this because it's going to put more stress on him because he's 13, like it's okay if we don't pursue that. And I just remember seeing this like weight, almost like she exhaled, like this relief
Mm.
of, okay. And so we made the decision to just focus on more palliative measures at that point
Okay.
and his quality of life. Because I told her, I said, he has no idea he has cancer.
Mm.
All he knows and all our pets know is right then and there in that present moment. They aren't worried about the past or the future. Like they're very present focused and they don't take their diagnosis the same way that we do. They
Mm.
don't hear the word cancer the same way that we do. We have that emotional reaction to it. And it makes so much sense why we do. And so I was like, he has no idea he has cancer.
Mm.
All he knows is how he feels in this moment. And right now he feels really good. So
Mm.
let's focus on his comfort, his quality of life, and for however long that might be. And
Mm.
it just shifted so much for us where we got really clear on what we wanted, what we didn't want, what our like line in the sand was of we didn't want to go past this. And knowing those different things helped with making future decisions.
Mhm.
And it was all written in pencil. It's not like we wrote this in permanent marker where we couldn't change our mind. Like we knew throughout the entire process that even if we decided we weren't doing this at any point, if we decided we wanted to, like it was okay. But talking about all of that, having those really tough conversations, and they can be really hard conversations to have, let alone to even think about those thoughts. And it's so common and understandable to want to avoid it and to sweep it under the rug and just be like, nope, 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 not going to deal with it.
Mhm.
What I found on that journey was by facing it head on and talking about it in little tiny bite-sized pieces where it was like below that threshold of becoming too overwhelming, too emotional, but just like talking about it in little tiny chunks at different points in time.
Mm.
It helped to decrease that fear, to decrease that anxiety, that overwhelm, that uncertainty. It helped us just, like I said, with making any decisions in the future.
Mm.
And when we did reach the point where we were like, this is it. This is the end. We've reached the end. There's no more after this. Like we were still incredibly sad to
Mm.
say goodbye to him.
Mhm.
So it was so hard still, but we also felt very at peace with that decision. And it's like we didn't know, we can't know or predict the future, and all we could have done and anyone can do is make the decision that you feel is best with what you know at the time.
Yeah.
And at that time with him, my grandpa had just passed away. He we had the funeral, we had all of those things, and for the next couple of days, my grandpa was going to be the priority. His funeral, like all of that was going to be my mom's priority. And we had found out that Riley, he had a mass on his liver and it had grown.
Okay.
And it was the type of mass that was at risk for a major bleeding episode at any point, like without warning sometimes. And we had that in the background of like, okay, the next couple of days it's going to be dedicated to grandpa. And my mom was like, if something happens to him, I can't do anything. Like this is my priority right now. And I know that she would never have forgiven herself if
Mm-hmm.
something would have happened as we were leaving, or if we were gone and came back and he passed away. Like she would have never forgiven herself for that. And so knowing that information, we may have made the decision sooner than we probably needed to had circumstances been different.
Mm-hmm.
But we knew that we wanted his ending. And this is something I talk about with my clients too, is like, what kind of quality of death do you want for your pet? What ending do you want for your pet?
Mm-hmm.
With no right or wrong way to go about it. And for us personally, we wanted wanted a little bit of control in that largely uncontrollable situation. And we didn't want any suffering. We didn't want him to pass away on his own, alone, without us there. So we made that decision to have somebody come to our house to help us say goodbye to him
Mm-hmm.
in the comfort of our living room with Christmas music playing in the background. The Christmas tree was on. He got to eat Reese cups and he got to sit in my mom's lap and I got to hold his head. I got to hold his head in my hands as he just peacefully transitioned on to wherever it is that they go. And it was beautiful and it was dignified and he got to go out with all of his dignity on a day that he was acting more like himself than he had been in a while. And that made it even harder
Mm-hmm.
because you were like, well, look at you. You got a pep in your step. You haven't acted like this in a long time. But it was just so beautiful to see him go out knowing nothing but just peace, comfort, and love. Like I couldn't have imagined a better ending to that story of finding that little 6-week-old puppy in a bush by himself. Like it was a beautiful experience and it taught me how sacred and how beautiful the ending can be.
Mm-hmm.
And preparing for it ahead of time helped us create that story and create that ending
Mm-hmm.
with him.
That's beautiful. That's just, even with the emotion that I can see on your face and hear in your voice, it's just, I was visualizing it with you and it just felt such like the right choice, like very beautiful. And like you say, none of you would ever have wanted him to go on his own. And I think it's just that must be something that probably even you speak to your clients about, is that if they are having a good day and you choose to make that choice, that it's just, it's conflicting, those feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that there's no right or wrong too
Mm.
when it comes to that
Yeah.
at all. It's a very personal decision.
Mm.
And some people they would rather be a moment, a day, a week, a month too soon than a
Mm.
second too late. And other people, they want as much time as possible with their pet.
Mm.
And knowing that might be a trip to the emergency clinic, and that's okay too.
Mm.
It's all about what's important to you and what matters to you and what you want for you and your pet.
Mm. That's so, so right. There's no right or wrong way, and it's not a straightforward road. It's just lots of veering off
Yeah.
the road to get to the
Yes.
decision that's right for you.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that story with all of us listening as well, because we were in it with you and we could visualize it. And what a beautiful life Riley had.
The Life of Riley. I think
Yeah.
it's a book
Yeah.
or a movie.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
The Life of Riley.
Yeah.
And I think too, just also touching on the point of we said goodbye in December of 2017,
Mm.
and I still get emotional. Not always,
Mm.
but it'll catch me off guard. Like I didn't think that I would get emotional like that talking about
Mm.
his story.
Mm.
But to normalize that it doesn't matter how much time passes, like you may still get emotional and that's okay. And that's normal to still experience and feel that emotion, even if the loss occurred
Mm-hmm.
decades ago.
Mm. So valid. That is so true. How how does it lead on then to Sage Paws?
Yes,
He's your
yes.
inspiration,
He is my
obviously.
inspiration. Yes. And so it's like just the experience that I had with him, it was such a gift to my family that even though it was still sad, there wasn't much question of it being the right decision for us at the quote unquote right time for us. And it's something that I want other people to be able to experience of like, we have no idea what the future holds. We don't know. It's okay if you're uncertain. And these are preparing ahead of time is a way to help minimize that uncertainty to
Mhm.
help you. Oh no, she just stepped on, sorry, Reese just stepped on my headphones. But just the experience and talking about it early and often, like I said, it was such a gift for my family, and it's something that I want other people to have and to experience that
Mm.
even though it can feel overwhelming, uncertain, it can be scary. It
Mm.
can also be beautiful, and you can have that little bit of control, and you can look back on this time with few to no regrets.
Mm. Mm. I think that's super special. Like, that's really nice. And you obviously guide clients with this predicament that they're having with the choices, with the decisions. Obviously, you can't make decisions for your clients, but do they, do most of your clients come to you for end of life kind of guidance? Would that be the, yeah.
Yeah. I think that that's the main people that have come to me is they're
Mm.
facing that decision probably sooner rather than later. It may be within the next couple of weeks or maybe a couple months, but there has been some change where they feel that that end is closer,
Mm.
is a lot closer than it was. And just holding that space for them to talk it out, to talk through, okay, here's one decision. Let's go through like what the pros and the cons of this decision. How does it like being that sounding board for them, that safe space for them to just
Mm.
ask those questions, get the thoughts out. I
Mm.
had a client the other day where his dog, she was very, very sick. And he was, talking about all this treatment, hospitalization, cost, all of this
Mm.
stuff. And he asked me, he's like, would it be wrong to choose euthanasia? And I said, absolutely not.
Mm.
So it's just helping them to give themselves permission that it's not a wrong choice to say goodbye and to just create those memories during the time that you do have left
Mm.
so that you can look back on that time and they may be a source of comfort to you during those hard
Mm.
days and to really just create that beautiful ending that's unique to you and to honor your pet's life and legacy and
Mm.
to start processing those emotions, that grief before it happens. And
Mm.
I think that can help afterwards. There's nuances like between the two of pre-anticipatory grief and then post-loss grief.
Mm.
There's differences, but what we found was with starting to talk about that, the emotions and starting to work through that, it
Mhm.
helped afterwards
Mm.
a lot. We had tools that we'd already been using ahead of time that we pulled from
Mm.
afterwards.
Yeah, I definitely hear you on that. I do feel the same. I feel that it's probably people don't even think to search for support or seek guidance or support prior, like coming up to end of life. And I think that that's something that's so needed and to be spoken about. Do you find that that's a struggle for people to want to come to terms with? Do they struggle to kind of talk about their emotions when it comes to anticipating the loss of their pet in general?
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I think so. I think pet loss grief as you know, has this stigma around it. It's not always accepted or validated by society. And then I think anticipatory grief is that and then some, because people don't always understand why somebody would be sad about losing a pet before it actually occurs.
Mm.
Even from the moment that their pet comes into their life,
Mm.
you're starting to do that mental math of, okay, I did it with Reese. The second she has a 6-week-old kitten, and I was sitting there doing math like, well, she's a cat. I've probably got XYZ number of years
Mm.
and already starting to do that.
Mm.
And so I've met so many people that also had no idea that anticipatory grief was a thing. They didn't know that was a word to describe what they were experiencing, that they could grieve before the loss occurred, that it was normal to grieve before the loss
Mm.
occurred.
Mm.
And that is something I am so passionate about talking about. And I don't feel like I feel like it's this invisible weight
Yes.
that we just
Mm.
that you feel, and because people don't see it, they don't always understand it.
Mm.
Like if you had, a broken leg, it's very people would be like, "Oh, let's help you." But then when you have grief, whether it's pre or post loss,
Invisible.
like
Yeah.
yeah, it's all invisible. Like, "Oh,
Mm.
what are you talking about? I don't understand it." Like just get over it. It's like, "No. This is a very
Mm.
real thing for me."
Mm. And yes, I so agree. And a lot of Jen's reels on Instagram that I watch, it's all a lot of it's focused around this topic, and I think it's super important that you do speak so much about this topic. If there's somebody listening and they're wondering if they're going through anticipatory grief, what could you tell them would be ways that they would know that they are going through it, whether they may not realize it? What might be some of the signs or things that they would experience?
Yeah, yeah, and just like post loss grief, it
Mm.
depends.
Mm.
Everybody's a little bit different, and I know for me, it's feeling the sadness. Like if I think about it enough with Reese
Mm.
about the ending and what I would want for her, and starting to think about it, I can feel that sadness, just like a heavy pit in my
Mm.
stomach, and just I don't know. It's so hard to put into
Into
words.
words, yeah.
Um, to articulate it, but it's just kind of this sadness, this like melancholy, this
Mm.
maybe a little bit more subtle. I mean, it might not be crying or very visible signs, but it's more a lot of internal stuff,
Mm.
that a lot of thoughts, sometimes a lot of ruminating thoughts, thinking
Mm.
about like what life will be like, what
Mm.
um but yeah, just feeling similar emotions that you might experience after the loss occurs.
Mhm.
To feel that sadness, to feel that anger, that frustration, that resentment, that
Mm.
whatever feeling.
Yeah. And I'm sure people may be thinking and ruminating a lot about the future without their pet as well, and just not wanting that to happen, and just not
Yeah.
like trying to hold on as much as they can, maybe those
Yes.
thoughts and
Yes. Anxiety would be another one. The anxiety of what's to come.
mm,
When is this going to happen? And like you said, wanting to try to control because you feel so out of control, because you're
mm,
just like, I don't know when this is going to happen, and I know it's going to hurt when it happens.
hmm
So it's like wanting to do anything you can to have certainty, to want that control back, to relieve that anxiety.
hmm And for anybody listening who might feel like they need support, specifically support from you, your services, can you maybe describe like how you kind of can guide people through a session, or you don't have to go into massive detail, obviously, because that's personal for each client, but if they were to visualize what a session would look like with you if they did want some end of life kind of guidance for their pet.
Yeah, that's such a good question.
Mm.
Such a good question. And I was just like, as you were talking, I'm thinking about, yeah, there are a couple things that I do tend to touch on with every client. And it's, talking about quality of life and
Mm.
going through a quality of life scale, and
Mhm.
and also touching on, personal things that might not be on that scale, but it's important for that pet in that situation.
Mhm.
Quality of life is a big one. How to tell if they're in pain,
Mhm.
because it can be a very subtle presentation since we're mostly dealing with a chronic or a long-term pain process. It's been going on for a while. So
Mhm.
helping them, almost teaching them a language, the language of pain. Like, what does this look like? Because it can be
Mhm.
very, very subtle. So going through that, and like I have a pain scale,
Mhm.
talking about um, quality of death. What ending do they want for their pet? What's your line in the sand? What are your budgets when it comes to financially, time budget, physical budget, emotional budget? Like, where are you at with all of these things?
Yeah.
Um, what do you want this time to look like? Almost like pre-planning, like we do for ourselves,
Yeah.
and just getting that all in a row, just being conscious of what's coming, of
Yeah.
that ending. And by kind of facing that head on allows you to live more consciously and to be
Mhm.
more present and in the moment. And it just helps to give you, I think, a little bit of like a roadmap for this uncharted territory. And even if you've been through it before, every pet and situation can be different. You can have gone through it 5 times, and with this pet, you're like, I have no idea, because your bond and your connection can be different. The
Mhm.
disease process can be different. That's another thing we talk about too, is like what is going on medically with your pet.
Mhm.
I can't diagnose, prescribe, or treat anything, but we can talk in generalities about, okay, here's this disease process, here's what it may
Mhm.
look like towards the end. Talk through different treatment options if they're still interested in pursuing managing whatever disease process. And that's where that veterinary knowledge that I have comes in, where I can help them make sense of, like, if their vet recommended something
Okay.
and they're not quite sure, like, what does this mean, or what are some other options that maybe their vet didn't recommend. So it's just a blending of
Yeah.
of all of that together.
That's incredible. I mean, even just everything that you've described and probably much more as well. It's like I can imagine, and you can answer this, but I can imagine that many of your clients that you go through this process with them, I I'm guessing that that would automatically help with processing that grief that they're already experiencing prior to the death of their pet. I mean, even just that roadmap and just getting clear on questions that maybe they forgot to ask their own vet and they could ask you maybe to clarify something. Everything has happened so quick in clinic. I can imagine that when you've time to let stuff sink in, and then you've a pile of questions, and then I didn't get time to ask the vet about end of life or what are the options. So it's incredible that they can sit down with you and kind of build out the journey for the end of
Yeah.
life for their pet. Like, yeah. So
Yeah.
you would agree that it would help with processing of that grief anyway by
I
doing
think
all of
so.
this. Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely believe
Mm.
believe that it does, just through my own experience with my personal pets, and then when I was doing in-home end-of-life care, just having somebody to talk through things with,
Mm.
and to hear someone say, like, what you are feeling and thinking is okay, and it's normal to
Mm.
feel that and to think that.
Mhm.
I absolutely believe that it does help with helping you to come to that acceptance of what is, and it's not that you have to like what is happening, but finding that
Mm.
acceptance of, okay, these are the circumstances, this is what's happening, and then you can start to wrap your head around other things, and just coming to terms with what's coming. I think it can absolutely help to go through that. And I know when I was working in clinic full time, I didn't have a lot of time
Mm.
to dedicate to these conversations. I had
Mm.
maybe 30, 40 minutes, and it was not always owner focused. It was more pet focused
Mhm.
because the pet was in the clinic. And some vets don't enjoy these conversations. So it
Mm.
was like, you don't have the time. Some vets don't enjoy it. So that was another motivation
Okay.
for wanting to start this business too, is I wanted to give owners that space because when I was doing in-home care, I also felt like I could just picture myself leaving their house and then just the floodgates of questions and thoughts opening up, and then there's no one there to
Yeah.
talk through it. And so creating this business and giving people the 90 minutes that I set aside to just unpack whatever they want to unpack and talk about whatever they want
Mm.
to talk about, whatever they feel that they need. And that is my job, is to hold that space and to meet you where you're at and
Mhm.
to work together to come up with a plan that feels aligned to you and your beliefs and your values, and to help you start
Mm.
processing that grief and those emotions
Mm.
before the loss occurs.
Yeah. Amazing. And I don't know, is this a silly question, but I've never asked you this question, I don't think. When you're in college training, is there any grief training? Is there any kind of training like how to no. Okay. That
No.
answers my question.
Oh, well, I will say when I was going through like undergrad and in vet school,
Hmm.
there was very minimal training on end of
Okay.
life conversations,
Mm.
euthanasia. Everything that I learned was after I graduated.
Okay.
And that may have changed now because I do think veterinary hospice and palliative care is growing,
Yes.
and they're realizing the importance of having those conversations. So I think it's probably improving, but I really didn't get
Mm.
very much while I was in school. I think one of the most important appointments, and we didn't get
Mm.
much training on it. But I was lucky where I started practicing after graduation. I had wonderful, wonderful mentors, and they helped
Mm.
to kind of start to shape how I navigated those conversations
Okay.
with
Yeah.
owners. So
That was going to be my next question. Was like,
yeah,
how did you even begin to navigate those difficult appointments? But it's good that you had the right people around you to kind of guide you. Also,
yeah,
it's probably really overwhelming to kind of contemplate, oh, I have a euthanasia appointment or end of life appointment. Like it's I can imagine. But I think your business just came from something so beautiful and it's just needed so much because it's missing. It's missing in clinics and I guess it's no fault of vets. It's just they don't have that
yeah,
time like you've just shared with us. And I think,
yeah.
do you work with people kind of virtually all around the world or tell us a little bit more about how people can kind of get in touch with you or yeah.
Yeah. Yep. It's virtual and it's all around the world, which I love it. I love
Mm.
that's probably one of the more positive things that came out of the pandemic is
Yeah.
all this virtual Zoom and everything just exploded. And yes, that's a
Mm.
big reason why I wanted to set up the business the way that it is, with that virtual support and guidance,
Mm.
so I could help more people,
Mhm.
as many people as to make it more accessible for people, even in different countries, different time zones.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's amazing. If you could give one small bit of advice to anyone facing end of life with their pet, share with us what that might be.
That's a fantastic question. And I think I touched on it a little bit before, but it is, you make the decisions that you feel are best with what you know and the information that you have available to you at the time, from a
Mm.
place of love, compassion, and just a deep bond with your pet, who you know better than anyone else on this planet.
Mm.
There is no right or wrong decision. It is very personal, very, very personal. And just anything and everything that's coming up for you emotionally, thought-wise, it is valid, important, and it matters. It deserves to be seen, heard, and take up all of the space,
Mm. All of the space. Yes.
all of the space for as long as you
Yes.
need it to. Never stop talking about it. You talk about it
Yeah.
as much as you need to.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. That's the best answer. Love it. Where can people find you, whether social media, website, share with us?
Yep. You can find me on Instagram and it's at underscore sage underscore paws. And
Mhm.
then my website is sagepaws.com.
Fantastic, Jen. It's been amazing. And you and I formed this friendship over social media, which it's never happened to me before. I think you were my first one back when I started my page, and I just we felt kind of guided towards each other, and I'm just honored to be speaking to you, and I'm so happy that you're in this world doing this work. I feel like we're hand in hand, kind of on the same mission, and thank you for everything that you do for anyone that crosses your path or that you guide through this really emotional, painful process that they have to go through. So thank you. And thank you for joining me this week. I hope to have you on again sometime if you will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to come back because I think we could seriously talk for hours on this
uh,
topic.
yeah.
But, just echoing everything that you said, like I appreciate you asking me to be on here. And I'm so grateful that we got connected on here and just, I mean, the name Light After Loss, like it just spoke to me so much. And I was like, I have to follow this girl and I have to get to know her and just you bring such an energy and such a just a gentleness and just there's just something it's so hard to put into words, but you are just such a gift for this space and your clients, and I'm highly looking forward to us continuing to build this connection, this bond, this friendship, and bring more awareness to this very important topic.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. I will share all of Jen's details in the show notes underneath this episode, and you'll be able to reach out to her if you need her services or just follow her on Instagram because she just talks so much sense and gives so much advice and support. So thank you for listening, everybody, and until next time, take care.